Hey, this is Sabrina Monarch of Monarch Astrology and Magic of the Spheres podcast. I'm so excited to be here to be talking to you about the Mercury retrograde that's happening. The station is happening on March 15th, 2025 from Aries. It will retrograde back into Pisces and station direct April 7th from the later degrees of Pisces. I'm going to be talking about this transit, beyond Mercury retrogrades, mundane and, the associations that about like little tech snafus or detours, things breaking down. Mercury retrograde, um, I like to think of the mystical nature of the retrograde in the sense that, when you learn like a new fact or you're studying like a new stream of information, and then suddenly you start hearing those words or noticing those things in your environment. And the question of, do you just have the receptors, the brain receptors, the consciousness receptors to notice these things appearing in your field? Or did reality itself, in an animistic, relational kind of way, reanimate itself in relationship to your changes in perception? Mercury is associated with the magician archetype. So even though it can be things as dry as like data and facts and research, it is also connection making, right? And this isn't just something that happens like privately in our own brain. When we make new connections, new doorways and pathways open up in the reality around us. So the deeper objective of a Mercury retrograde is to have a shift in perception or to rethink, reevaluate. And, that can go quite deep. So I want to talk about that from the perspective of what's happening this time around. If you are new here, do subscribe to my channel. Everyone watching, please like this video. Just do it. It's really helpful and supportive to the channel. And also leave a comment at some point and just share with me how you're doing, what you're noticing about the things I'm sharing and how you're feeling them in your own life, how you're doing. Just say hi. Like, also love to hear from you in the comments. So I'm going to read from you something that I've written up, and I'll extrapolate and open up some tangents as we go. So this retrograde, I'm titling it like the beginning and the end because we're going back and forth between the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, and the last sign of the zodiac, Pisces. So I think, as an overview, and we'll get into this more deeply, I think there is a lot of closure and new beginnings that are showing up. And yeah, we'll unpack that. This retrograde is also especially marked with Venus because Mercury is stationing retrograde on March 15th, just a few days after Mercury made an exact conjunction to Venus, who's also retrograde in Aries. So Venus and Mercury will both travel back into Pisces. But when Mercury stations direct on April 7th in 26 degrees of Pisces, Venus and Saturn form a conjunction that same day at 25 degrees of Pisces, so just 1 degree away. So there's definitely like a dramatic, like, pay attention to Venus. Venus is retrograde also, and Mercury is like also dialing in deeper to that. So there's really something, I think, profound at a heart level that is going to be showing up through our reevaluations and rethinking and our shifts in perception. Mercury transits will highlight other transits that are happening in the sky, almost like Mercury comes in as a scribe. Mercury comes in to make things legible or translate it into something that feels more, what we're chatting about in line at the grocery store, like commonplace, like we can talk about it, we can see it, we can name it. So Mercury is really specifically drawing our attention to Venus at the direct and retrograde stations. And this back and forth between Pisces and Aries by direct and retrograde, and then direct again, planetary motion, could have us wrestling with some of these following themes in general and more intensely with the Mercury reiteration of it all, right? And by in general, I mean because we have Neptune and Pisces moving into Aries at the end of the month. So we have this Pisces-Aries direction. We have eclipses this month that were happening, with the nodes in Pisces and Virgo, but one of them is in Pisces, Virgo, the other's in Aries. And then we have Venus and Mercury both going back and forth between Pisces and Aries. So it's really, really loud, this conversation between these two signs. So, one of the first themes that you may notice is this dynamic, this interplay between forgiveness and anger. Because they're very related processes, I think, in the overall like acceptance and forgiveness process. If you think about like the 5 stages of grief that you may have heard of, like that kind of anger is part of it. Forgiveness, acceptance comes later on. And who's to say we actually do it in the order of those 5 stages? Because we might, really kind of flail or go back and forth. Right. So, with the transiting planets and Pisces, not just the Mercury and Venus stories, but all the activity that we've had with Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node in Pisces, there is a really strong impulse. There's been a high sensitivity, right? And when we're sensitive in a Piscean way, the ultimate objective is like love and oneness, honestly. And that level of sensitivity to that kind of spiritual pursuit then makes everything that's in the way of that louder, right? Like the grief, the despair, is also a Pisces thing, but just seeing like these little kind of grudges or grievances or things that we've been carrying become harder to carry in Pisces season because we are more sensitive to the fact that we're carrying them. There is a really strong impulse to heal and dissolve any barriers that we feel between us and a greater, more expansive mindset and approach to life. We become more sensitive and aware of where we are not in acceptance and where we have existential, philosophical, relational, and spiritual problems and baggage with the way things are, with the way things have been, with what's transpired. We may have even become more haunted by the unhealed pain that tends to go side by side with, choosing to never forgive, or even not necessarily choosing, but having this kind of temporary incapacity to forgive of like, I just can't let this go. Like this one's really stubborn. I can't dissolve this. And the haunting ensues with that. So at the same time, this impulse toward forgiveness then arises because the clear mental, when you've been like really struggling to let something go, or you have like a very deep, deep grievance with life, with a relationship, and you're holding on to it, of course, if you're also a spiritual person, you've thought, well, I guess I should get over this. I guess I should forgive, right? And so the strategy mind or this kind of willpower comes online of like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to forgive. Right? There's a really strong desire to move on or to not be in pain anymore. We may have tried to kind of like throw everything in the wash and just like let it go. I'm just not going to think about it anymore. I'm going to like let time heal it. But, there's some turmoil, some struggle. Let's say also that we just really bombastically, like willfully decided, like, yep, I'm over this. I'm going to forgive it. Or we, went ahead and did some kind of forgiveness prayer, ritual, or something like that. And then the defense mechanism, the anger, the rage, more of an Aries archetype, comes rearing back in, right? Because we just energized and kind of gave all this spiritual life and prayer and whatnot to a process. And then, yeah, all this kind of stuff resurfaces. So that kind of back and forth between Pisces and Aries. I'd like to forgive, but I'm still really angry, right? Or there's some anger that I didn't let myself feel back then. And now it's like spirally coming back up. And this might be just part of the healing process, right? If you're someone that has kind of gone to forgiveness and acceptance in a bypassing kind of way, sometimes there is an overall kind of dampening of pride or personal spirit, or just kind of like even doormat kind of energy, or just like taking something and, oh, but I'm a good person. I forgive. Everything's fine. And then this energy comes back of like, actually, no. Like Aries Mars is like the no, I don't stand for this. I don't I'm not going to wallow in this. I'm done thinking that, I just suck or that like I'm not good enough. Like I was fucked over. I'm fucking pissed about it, right? Like that's kind of like the cycle that comes up. And all of that is okay. I just want to like put that out there that these things don't happen necessarily in like a linear, perfect, logical order. Sometimes that kind of balm of forgiveness, or like, I'm going to be the bigger person and like take the higher road and just like focus on living a good life. And like the anger gets suppressed into shadow. And so that whole healing process, like, there's been some parts left behind or whatnot. So that's just an example of kind of how those energies work together. The other one is that you could have someone who's really been into the rage and like stayed looping in the anger. And, they're moving toward more like, how can I let this go and like open to a bigger picture reality and not be stuck in my own pain and anger. But part of this also is that, with all these Pisces transits, there is an increase in compassion and self love. And so, in a messy kind of way, that might bring us back to parts of the spiral that we thought we already got past, where it's like, oh, now I just have the compassion that I've developed or the sensitivity that I've developed to actually really love this wounded part of me or this angry or this in pain part of me, instead of telling it to shut up and go back into my shadow. Like now I actually have the spiritual resource to welcome that part of myself home. So, in many ways that I'm dancing around the topic, it's just like, yes, there's this deep spiritualization that's happening. And at the same time, there's some messy dynamics inside of it internally, heat, anger, even parts that feel like immature, like inner child kind of energy that, is also part of the overall story. And that there may be this enhanced ability resource, through synchronicity, through education, through spiritual development to learn how to hold parts of our process that we couldn't before. So there's also a courage Aries that's coming up in terms of this healing process that's happening. So spiritual and personal growth is really spiralic. Sometimes we think we've gotten over something, or we've like, oh, I dealt with that. I already processed that. But then at a deeper level of spiritual development, the new kind of level up inner demons come back up also. So maybe this has been messy, also maybe cathartic or profound, right? This kind of back and forth between inner fire and like our, sense of self, our sense that we matter, that that we get to exist, that we deserve a good life. And then also like this panoramic sense of the belonging to all things, or the way that, maybe we can, when we're in like difficult dynamics with other people, the spiritualization layer of it, the Aries anger layer of it is like, I'm me, you're you, and like who's right, who's wrong. Like there's that separation. But from a Piscean perspective, you can see like all the threads that connect you to your enemies, even. And there's kind of like a deeper spiritual healing, and that those deeper layers of recognition of, how did I call this in, or what was that person mirroring in me? What was the karmic dynamic? And sometimes that vision in Pisces also mutes real human anger or personality layers that want to be felt, but we didn't feel them because we were already so blasted out in kind of like a cosmic forgiveness perspective. So something is rearranging between forgiveness and anger, in short. If we have rigid strategies around anger versus mercy and forgiveness, right? If we're too focused on being tough and defended and we don't embrace our sensitivity, or we focus on being spiritually good and taking the high road, but we don't embrace like our human, we may be stuck in some repetitive choices and knots that come from that rigidity inside, right? Creating similar conflicts or situations over again. So some greater flexibility, Mercury rethinking in these deeper dynamics might loosen these knots and open up some more powerful or expansive trajectories for us. So, back to what I was saying at the beginning about this theme, the end and the beginning. Pisces is the last sign relating to endings and tying up loose ends before dissolving back into the all of everything. I want to quote another astrologer, Luna Veronica, who wrote about Pisces in a way that really touched me. So, this is the quote. Pisces season and Pisces people are known to carry elements of sadness. That is because they are the last zodiac sign on the wheel, representing endings while carrying the quiet knowing that everything eventually fades. There's a deep awareness that physical life is temporary, that this moment is already slipping into memory. Pisces can feel things before they happen and find meaning in the unseen. Pisces can rule the part of us that represents loss, saying goodbye with the desire to return to the universal oneness state we all came from and to where we are all going. Pisces season is about both endings and beginnings, contrary to people believing this only belongs to Scorpio. Pisces knows that this is truly the end of a cycle and we are merely spiritual beings awaiting to return home. If you're feeling the weight of an ending while standing at the edge of something new, that's exactly how this time is meant to feel, repeating like clockwork every year. End quote. And that was Luna Veronica, who I will leave her Instagram in the show notes. I thought that was such a beautiful description of like the type of sadness that Pisces can hold because you're in that kind of experience of life, but that knowing that it's also like slipping or that there is like this ending that comes with the cycle. Whereas Aries, on the other hand, is a beginning, this brave new spark of life that is willing to assert itself as an individual as compared to the epic, timeless backdrop behind it. That's not always conscious, right? There's a youthfulness and a naivete to both actually Pisces and Aries, but sometimes with Aries, it's like, this need to prove oneself, this need to like really assert to the world that you exist, right? Or to overcome challenges as this way to prove that you exist. And it's that way that, Aries is just kind of coming from the oneness, like coming from the all that has that like almost kind of corrective or compensatory, I'm here, I am quality to it, which is also really powerful, right? You can see how that's also medicinal and corrective for the part of Pisces that's just kind of slipping into this sense of lostness and confusion, or I'm just going with the flow, and Aries bringing in that decisive, no, this is the direction that I'm taking. So, I mean, maybe situate yourself like, where is this happening in your life right now with all these Aries and Pisces transits that it's so loud of like, one part of me or part of my soul life is kind of dying or coming to its end. And there's this also new era or this new beginning that's happening. And they're both really loudly talking to each other, perhaps. In Pisces, we want to let go of as much as possible so that we don't have to carry it the next time, right? The next lifetime or the next cycle, right? Like inside of relationships, for example, if you keep repeating a relationship pattern, you can find another person and then do the same pattern over and over again with the new people that you meet. And until you learn the lesson in the pattern, you'll just keep employing, new people to play the role of that pattern. So there is kind of a gravity in the ending of the Pisces of like, maybe I should figure this one out so I don't keep going down the loop over and over again. So yeah, repetitive situations in this life, as well as this life as a whole inside of a multi-lifetime context. But, right here, right now, what's happening at a cyclical level, that there is some desire to maybe shift the timeline. In Aries, we want to cut free from what burdened us in the past. Mentally, as far as the Mercury retrograde goes, we might be trying to complete or solve certain things while also trying to make space for new life. So there's this truth that grieving, and grief is an experience associated with water, and Pisces is a water sign. This makes way for new life, Aries representing new life. We may at times feel the urgency or impatience to just be ready for a new start. Yet we have not actually reconciled or learned what there is to learn in Pisces, so we feel stuck in our frustration to move on and be free of the past and its limitations, preoccupations, patterns, or recurring conflicts. Right? You know that kind of tension if you're one part of you is like really audacious and willing to just like go do the plant medicine journey, like go excavate your unconscious, like go change your life in this really big, powerful way. Um, look at it, face it. And the way that that counts for something that does move the needle forward in these certain ways. And sometimes processes just have like there's less control in Pisces. There's a surrender that's happening. So if you've ever kind of been at that like, oh, can I just figure out this deep karmic knot, this thing that I'm here to learn? And the Aries side is like rushing, wants to learn it as fast as possible. And the Pisces is like, well, this is actually really big and oceanic, and I don't have full control here. Right. So that tension. We may have some agency in moving faster through these passages and not dwelling unnecessarily in terms of having that will that's represented by Aries, but full on spiritual breakthroughs can't be forced either. Such as the tension of being willing, but also dealing with material that is really transpersonal and big and at times really beyond us. And that's what makes it so epic and what makes the courage and the Aries part like also so real. We might have rigid ideas about how the order of things is supposed to go, what full completion looks like, and what a new start looks like, and when can we start anew, and how much those processes should or shouldn't blend. Such as, people might think that a new relationship only begins when they've fully healed from a past one or healed some relational wounding. I can do all my healing and then I'm ready for love. Or we only start something when we feel spiritually pure and aligned enough for it. While waiting and making space and not just like rushing into repeating the same thing over again is wise in its own way, that could be the answer. And for others, it might be the initiation and courage of Aries and actually like getting in the arena, like getting in the game, taking the risk, showing up for challenges that trigger those deeper Piscean healing processes. Like jumping in headfirst into the water and learning how to swim. I think we might be really wrestling during with this time of like, I'm starting this new thing, but it's actually bringing up this whole wave of big energy from the past. And then I'm like healing the stuff from the past and it's making space for new life. And it's like those boundaries are becoming more mutable, I think. Maybe these processes of beginnings and endings are supporting each other more than we think. We might be discovering new ways of engaging these transitions more dynamically, more creatively, instead of relying on old frameworks that we've had for how to time beginnings and endings, how to kind of try to control the process. We might be learning how to activate more of our ability to be dynamic, active participants in the natural flow of what's unfolding, combining that Aries and Pisces magic. So let me just pause here before I go on to one of the final themes. I just wanted to share that let me share my screen here. The Evolutionary Astrology Intensive is coming back. So this is an opportunity. We are starting May 6th. And this is an opportunity to learn how to read natal charts from the perspective of the soul, to become astrologically fluent and literate, right? So learning all these, the vocabulary, the signs, the planets, aspects, like learning it in a structured way, how to put it together. But I think what makes this class really special is that there is such an emphasis on getting to know these archetypes as actual alive forces out in the world that you have your own relationship to. That you've already been in relationship to these archetypes and we're just naming it, learning how to see it, learning how to hone the archetypal eye. It's amazing to watch my students over the course um, have these personal breakthroughs in their conversations with life, with the planets, and then to be so adept at reading charts at the end of class, reflecting people, being able to read the person and read the chart at the same time. So, evolutionary astrology is the lineage that I'm rooted in. It involves Pluto and the lunar nodes to gain a portrait of the soul's evolution from life to life. What you've been kind of carrying as a soul that probably got constellated and kicked up in your early life, the kind of things you were born into, conflicts, challenges, etc., that you've had. Learning how to read that from such a bigger frame, right? Because at a human level, it's just the difficulties or the hardships, not necessarily this like greater storyline meaning of how has this been alchemical? What is it that my soul is working on? So people often feel from taking this class like a deeper connection to their soul life, their soul essence, compassion arising, and like a deeper, that deeper kind of eros that can come through studying soul and really connecting with that deeper essence within. The course is by application. Applications are open now. I'm leaving the link in the show notes for you to learn more about this class. It is a super lit, amazing class. It's a 5-month, all levels program. And, we meet live. It's a combination of pre-recorded videos and teachings and live classes where we talk and workshop and whatnot. But there's really an opportunity in an intimate, tight-knit cohort group to learn astrology in community and to also receive, direct mentorship. It's not, the class size is small enough that I'm actually like in connection with my students. And I really do care about getting to know my students and being there to, support, reflect. And yeah, I'm going to leave it at that and just encourage you to go look at the course page, read student testimonials, FAQ, all of that. Apply, and we'll get on a call to see if this class is right for you. There are some opportunities to work with me one-on-one currently. I'm just going to leave my Eros and the fixed sign consult in the show notes. A few videos back, I talk about why I connect Eros and the fixed signs, but I do want to get back to the forecast for now. Sign up for my mailing list. Best way to hear about offerings and stay in the know about my readings and bookings and courses. So back to Mercury retrograde. One of the last themes for this kind of back and forth between Pisces and Aries, I'm just calling vaguely, should I do something? Should I? The question straddling Pisces and Aries is about leaning into life. It's finding the wave and surfing it, not just looking at the wave from a distance and opting out, nor just forcing one's way against the current brutally all the time. Either sign has a different type of ambivalence, like this existential Piscean, to be or not to be here or not to be here, to care or not to care, to slip into a dream and escape, or really land here and exist. Like very existential, to be or not to be. Right? And it doesn't just mean to literally exist or not, but it's, Pisces are often, they have this kind of visionary quality or can kind of see possibilities. And it's, do they actually weave those possibilities into how they participate with life and like bring and incarnate that energy into the world? Or are they just kind of in their own dream world? That's the, am I going to influence reality or not? And then you have this insecure ambivalence of Aries. I don't know where this impulse will take me, so should I even do it? Should I take the risk? Should I take the leap or not? Aries' natural gusto, you could say, is, however, a correction or a defense from the miasma of Pisces. It's a sheer willingness to exist and to do the thing and to bounce back from mistakes, pivot, learn, and keep going. We might be rethinking, recalibrating how inspiration or deeper vision, Pisces, compels us to act, Aries, and how our actions put us in relational feedback with the web of life and get fed back into the world of vision, Pisces. So let me really pause and explain what that means. I think that when we create, like when we're moving through life, like actually adding ourselves, like bringing ourselves and our deeper vision to what we're doing, that life itself does talk back to us, right? So if I experience this a lot as like a creator, as a teacher, that when I'm creating offerings, like what I'm creating into the world also speaks back to me in my dreams, in synchronicities, right? That I'm having experiences that are actually really in conversation with what's happening. And it's not always like sometimes it's a really open road or it's like this kind of sense of ease or support. It can also be challenges that prepare you to hold what it is that you're creating, right? If you have a prayer, if you say a prayer and life starts to reconstellate to give you some challenges and tests that forge you into the person that you prayed to become, right? So it's like prayer or kind of like creating things. It's not just about everything being easy afterwards, but it's being able to notice the feedback and the conversation that's happening from life itself. I've noticed this as a writer and whatnot, that because I share my writing like in this way, like on YouTube or wherever, that, I go to sleep and I have these dreams that are really vivid or whatnot. And maybe my dream life is quiet and I'm not producing a lot and things are really quiet, but then I start to participate and share. And then there's like a feedback response. It shows up with service too, right? Like the energy of service. If you are giving of yourself and giving of your gifts to the world, to life, to earth, then you will be even more resourced in many different channels to do that. There's lots of little micro navigations inside of that in terms of not being a martyr or like learning how to have respect for your boundaries and needs and stuff like that. But generally, I do think that participating, giving, offering creates like kind of a funnel energetic where the universe, life, earth kind of resources you in return. So just naming that as like part of the reality. But there may be places during the retrograde where we might be grappling with a philosophical impasse around what our role is inside of the situation, inside of this web of life. Like what's possible here. I'm having all these ideas and visions, but are they mine to put into action? If so, which ones? Right? Am I the agent of change? Is this my battle, so to speak? This might look like deciding where we let go of trying to make anything happen versus where we are willing to act, right? So kind of just that different, maybe some shifts in consciousness around how we discern when to let go and stand back and like not do anything versus when the answer is like, actually, I'm the one with the dream and the inspiration, so I'm going to bring this forward. This could also have something to do with how we negotiate connections and desire in relationship, given all the Venus connections this retrograde, right? So it's like, do I name what's on my heart? Do I reveal, what I'm seeing and envisioning and desiring, or do I keep that private? And that dance. In some connections or moments, there is nothing to do. Right. So it's like sometimes there is a kind of like Aries, like ramming kind of energy of like, I'm just really trying to make this work or like really trying to be the hero here, trying to like, fix this relationship or make something happen. And like the karmic impasse is like, this isn't working. Like it's just literally not the move anymore. Versus when there is actually like an openness, there is a shared reality, there is some kind of connection or possible road before you with the connection. And there's some unseen, subtle energies hanging out, some subtle perceptions. And it's that, do I name that? Do I act on these impulses? And how much that can actually change things. I'm thinking about a reel by Madeline Moon where she's talking about asking someone, like, you have a connection and things are vibing, and then suddenly the energy shifts, and that instead of just kind of pretending that didn't happen or trying to go on as normal, that you can actually stop there and be like, hey, what just happened there? Right? And the other person might be like, wow, actually, and divulge what just happened there. So I'll leave the link in the notes. But yeah, just kind of that energy of naming something we feel or notice instead of just letting it slip away into the unseen world and the list of things we never said or did. We can't change the direction of just any wave that's happening in reality, so to speak, just because we have the will or want to. But sometimes it's really powerful to jump on a current that we could have just easily watched, slide on past us. The artist or the visionary doesn't answer every single call of the muse, right? But, we do turn down ideas and waves, but we might be rethinking where our ambivalence is versus where we are willing instead, and vice versa. So, a few more things on this before we close out here. One of the, I have this video on this channel about Venus, Saturn, and Pisces, Eros, and the obstacle. It's a few videos back. I'll link it in the notes. But it was about that Venus Saturn conjunction in Pisces that happened that first time when Venus went direct over that. And I was speaking about some things that I was picking up from Jack Morin's book, The Erotic Mind, in that video. But one of the, there's this concept in the erotic mind that obstacles are part of the erotic life. That, essentially there was like a wave of like sex relationship therapy that thought, there's insecurity, there's issues, just get them out of the way so that you can enjoy unhindered and like shame-free expression. And he was complicating that by saying that like sometimes the things that turn us on really deeply are actually connected to deep, profound obstacles, right? Like when here's like a non-romantic example, but consider like the person who is kind of like outcast and always felt different, felt weird. And then later in life, they like find their group or like find their community. And it's like extra magical because that community answers like a deep ache inside of like the time that they didn't have it. Right. So that there's actually a way that the obstacle, which is kind of like a Saturn thing, intensifies the eroticism of things. There's lots of different ways that this pattern plays out. So I want to point you back to that video because this, Venus or Mercury retrograde is highlighting that transit once again. But I want to bring in the idea of ambivalence and overcoming ambivalence, which was from the book The Erotic Mind, as one of these like obstacles that can be overcome. Obviously in the frame of consent and whatnot, because, ambivalence is like, I don't know, I don't feel like it. And non-ambivalence is like, yes, so assuming consent is in the picture, overcoming ambivalence is like this sudden burst of life or eroticism that can be found when we feel passion or interest in a place that we used to not care so much. It's not just an obvious courtship or erotic sense of like going from not feeling anything to being in the mood, not liking someone to liking them. Though I do remember a man from a couple sharing with a group of us how he and his partner got together and how like she didn't look at him that way until they danced together. So after dancing together, prior ambivalence was overcome. And there's something about that that has a lot of fireworks where it's like, wow, something went from being so-so to being like really a big deal. In an existential sense, this Mercury retrograde, like where are we feeling excited or feeling sparks of aliveness in places we used to be more like indifferent or disinterested or maybe numb? This could be a theme, this Mercury retrograde, and could also be so much more profound, where it involves deeper sensations of connection in places that we used to feel alone or disconnected. So I'll close us here with a story about ambivalence, like just as an example. Um, let's see. I don't know like how, the backstory. We'll just kind of start at the impulse that I received that felt really clear of like, I need to start going outside and making up energy journeys and meditations with the elements. I started with the sun. I've been doing it with like the surface, putting my feet in the water. Like it's just like a Mediterranean playground over here. But I was like, I need to talk to the sun. This is really important. So inside, I think that uh, the luminaries, the sun and moon, really fascinate me in the way that they can be so mundane and ordinary. Like you see them all the time. Even as an astrologer, like there was a series of years where I was like, the sun and moon, like, let's just start with Pluto. Like, that's like where I want to start in the chart. So sometimes in a chart reading, I wouldn't even really think about the sun. And then that shifted where I was like, actually, the sun and the moon are so loud. They're so psychedelic. They have so much to say. They're so fucking alive. Like, I couldn't believe that I had like overlooked, and this happens with astrology or whatnot, where it's like you get excited about something and overlook something else, and there's spirals and whatnot. But yeah, I was like, the sun is really profound. So yeah, I think that the winter, there's this absence of the sun. So when spring comes, it's like actually, we greet the sun with this level of enthusiasm and non-ambivalence, right? That maybe at the end of summer, you're like, I'm, tired of this. I need to hide from this heat. Anyway, um, I had a really, really powerful experience connecting with the sun and, just kind of generating like this is a craft that I'm coming up with right now, or like deepening my capacity to come up with journeys and whatnot. So, yeah, I was playing with the sun, playing with like moving like liquid electric sunlight through my body and different energy centers and like having this whole deep imaginative journey. But after I came out of it, it gave me this vision that I've felt so many different times in my life, like, like almost like being like a kid on the playground and being like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, I don't know how to play here. Like, or having dreams, recurring dreams about parties and the difference in the dreams if I'm like out in the party, like having a good time, or I like don't know what to do with myself. And it was kind of showing me like this energetic of if there's so much possibility in life, like if anything is possible, why can't you just generate the fun? Like, why can't you bring like the sun, the energy? Like, you can set the temperature, like, you can create the vibe. Why project so much sadness or despair onto the void from which anything is possible? And so essentially just from like opening and like dilating my skin and my like energy body to that conversation with the sun who's always there, more or less depending on the season, I was like given this like really deep life affirming vision of like you can make things possible, or like you can create light from within. And it was really kind of extreme and ecstatic and a different energy than I had started, been in like a couple hours before. Though admittedly, I was super excited to go outside and talk to the sun in this particular case. But why I connect this to like ambivalence or the theme of overcoming ambivalence is that there's a lot of things that dull and deaden our spirit, right? There's like difficulties, there's tragedies, there is the sense that things are grim or that things aren't possible. There's a way that we become disinterested in our own erotic energy or life force or the possibilities in life or the possibilities of like creating connection in the world. And what I've, this was just a conversation talking to the sun, but what I've experienced more maybe in like a plant medicine context is that deeper kind of existential check in with earth, with all the life surrounding me of like, how are we in relationship to this planet? Um, and I think that, yeah, with Pisces, there's something about kind of coming in and out of spiritual realization and forgetting, right? Of like the difference between when eating food is like so special and such a celebration versus when it's so mundane or like such a chore, right? Or when getting to talk to a parent, see a parent, talk to a parent on the phone is like, wow, I'm like so grateful that we're here together. It's so intense actually sometimes to like really take it in of like how precious and sweet life is. And I think that that kind of Piscean, right, ambivalence of like it's all fading, loss is a thing. I'm going to defend myself from feeling the ecstasy and the connection of everything versus that kind of Aries like excitement and willingness of like, this is fucking exciting to exist. Like things are possible here. I can thaw out parts of my heart that have been frozen for a bit. I can find reanimation and aliveness in places that I was disconnected from it. I can remember what it's like to feel connected or to feel joy or to feel like this kind of love that's so intense in my heart, right? Like these are very deep and existential and also so basic about, yeah, how we feel about existing and being here. And I'm gonna leave it at that. And also just remind you to check out the Evolutionary Astrology Intensive because it is a really fantastic way to learn astrological fluency in a depth psychology, soul based way with a group of amazing people and with mentorship and with, connection. Learning astrology in a communal way, learning with a teacher was what changed me from being like a self studier with all these disparate pieces to like actually feeling astrology as something that moves inside of me and like I can keep growing and developing in what I'm witnessing and even continuing to learn or talking to other astrologers. But it was that click of like, I have this. This is a language. This is a lens that I have. My goal of the intensive is to offer, help you cultivate that or wherever you are in your journey, if you already are a practicing astrologer, maybe in a different tradition or something, and you want to learn the EA lineage, or you just want to go deeper, like kind of have another spiral in depth with your practice, this course really will meet you where you're at. But go ahead and apply. We'll talk about it. And if you have any questions for how the class might meet your particular learning goals, we can feel into that together. Again, please like this video, leave a comment. I can't wait to be sharing my sun meditations and whatnot. Right now, I'm just playing with it personally, but I know I will share it at some point because I felt like I was like, this is free, Like you can just like go outside and talk to the sun and it's fucking profound, but it's a energy body cultivation. It's like actually playing with opening up our sensory awareness, the embodiment side of it, but connecting to the world around us. I think that's actually quite a deep process. And it's something I've been playing with for years now and will be, moving more into including it in my astrology work and teachings as I'm shifting kind of, how would I put it? Like my work is entering into service of aliveness. It has always been about enchantment and astrology and guiding this kind of felt sense of astrology. But more and more, I'm getting very excited about this concept of aliveness and cultivating aliveness, right? Coming back into a connection with essential parts of our essence, whether that is through trauma healing techniques or opening up our creative, playful energy to what is available to us in life. I'm going to stop here. Again, like this video, leave a comment, and thank you so much for being here. And I will be sharing more about the transits. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel, on my mailing list, all that good stuff. And I'll see you again soon.